guys want to see.
Thank you very much, band. Great stuff. Whoa, is it a good time to cover? Where we at, Michael? We good? There we are. So, as Taylor said, this is Mary, and she's a senior econ major. She's also really into figure skating, and I'll let her introduce me.
So this is Nathan.
This is Nathan. He is a senior. He's studying mechanical engineering. And I asked him for a fun fact about himself, and he said he couldn't think of anything really fun other than he really loves Jesus Christ. So that's his fun fact.
Yes, totally. Okay. So last week, Caius and Sarah covered 3 basic kinds of relationships and how you can start them and grow them into good things. And this week, we're going to cover when those relationships start to break down and be negative in your life and what it can look like to get out of those in a healthy way. So we talked about friendships, romantic relationships, and community last week. So we're going to go through each one of those, kind of break them down, give a story, and of how we had a bad one and how we got out of it. We both had kind of a theme we wanted you guys to get out of the talk tonight. So for me, I had a quote from Proverbs come up that was, "The man who walks with the wise becomes wise, but he who walks with fools, suffers harm." Wow, I should learn my Bible quotes. And I also took out, this in my entire life process, whenever you try and get God's agape love from somebody who isn't God, you become the fool and hurt yourself and other people.
And I kind of look back at a lot of the relationships in my life and kind of where they went wrong. And this theme that I came up with was really just the importance of learning how to set boundaries in your relationships and not being afraid to be open with your friends. Not like, this is what I need from you, and this is like where I need my own space. So that kind of concept of boundaries in all of your relationships.
So starting with friendship, we decided we wanted to break the friendship category down into Aristotle's 3 different kinds of friendships. You've got friendships of utility, friendships of pleasure, and friendships of virtue. And I think, Mary, you had a pretty good story about when a friendship of convenience kind of starts to break down.
Yeah, so Aristotle's like 3 types of friendships. There are also kind of like 3 levels of friendship. And friendships of convenience are like the most basic level. So the people in your classes, or like when you're younger, like your parents' friends' kids, but you're always just with them. So you kind of become friends just out of this habit. And a lot of those friendships don't go much further than that. And I had this girl in my own life when I was kind of in like junior high and high school, who our parents were really good friends, and we hung out a lot. We spent a lot of time together. Part of that was like, she had a lot of issues in her own life, in her family life, and mental health issues. And so my mom was like, "Mary, you should go play with her. Like, no one else is gonna go play with her." So we just kind of grew up like that. And when we got to high school, it became a problem because we didn't really have much in common, but we spent a lot of time together, and she just kind of expected me to spend a lot of time with her. So I did. And this habit that she picked up from her family was like, when she wanted attention, she'd have a crisis. So she'd text me, she'd be like, "Mary, I'm having a breakdown. I need you to come over right now." And I'd be like, "Okay, Mom, can I borrow the car? I need to go help Sarah." And this just became a pattern, and it was sucking a lot of my life into this. And I had a lot of friendships like this, where my friends, when they would like have a crisis, they would just need me, and I would just pour myself into them. And it finally hit a head with this one particular girl. She texted me one day, she's like, "Mary, I just like completely lost it. I had a complete breakdown." And I was like, "I can't handle this. Like, I'm 14, I don't know what I'm doing." So I called an ambulance and had it sent to her house. And my mom freaked out. She's like, "Mary, why didn't you just call 911? And I was like, "Well, I needed 911. And so my mom called her mom. Her mom called her school called her teacher, and she was sitting in her biology class. She got really bored, decided to start a crisis in my own life. And then I was like, wow, this girl was never really my friend. And what I really realized in that moment is like, I was trying to have this friendship with her that we really probably were never meant to have. We didn't have anything in common. We didn't even really like each other that much, but I was pouring myself into her and part of it was like, we're taught as Christians like to love everyone. And there's this great quote from John. that I'm not gonna remember unless it's up there. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And the way that I was interpreting that when I was in high school was like, oh my gosh, if I love people, it means I have to like pour myself out for them. I have to put my whole self into them. And I was constantly burning myself out because I had these friendships of convenience that I was trying to love them so hard, but I wasn't actually loving them, I was smothering them and I was enabling them. And what I had to learn to do is say like, sometimes loving you means I can't be the one to help you right now. And so that's where like setting boundaries comes in. So those friendships in your life where like, they're not your best friend, they're not your sibling, sometimes you have to admit to yourself that you aren't the right person to help someone. Kind of set that boundary and say, you know what, I can't help you. That doesn't mean you have to let go of the friendship entirely, but it does mean that you do have to take that step back and say, I'm happy to be your friend, I'm happy to go to a movie with you or something, but I can't carry all of your burdens. And so that's kind of like what moving on from a friendship of convenience looks like, at least in my life.
So my life is I've kind of resonated really well with the friendship of pleasure. And one story in particular, but in general, a friendship of pleasure is one where you meet a person and you have some kind of common hobby or like. So in my story, my friend, I met him in high school, middle school actually. We played football together. We found out we had a common interest in video games, and we just became good friends. We'd spend a lot of time together. We'd hang out. We'd go see movies and go eat Chinese food at varying places in town. Just a great kind of high school friendship. But as the years went on, we kind of started to grow apart a little bit. And then, you know, the summer before my junior year of college, we were spending all of our time pretty much together in Jeff City. And we just started bickering more and more. The friendship got really tense. And after a while, we were at the gym one day and we got into this fight about religion. He was Catholic, but we never, like, he wasn't on the same kind of level, if you know what I mean. I had just come back from the wild year, my sophomore year, where I had gone on Awakenings, I had gone on Seek, and I was just on this mountaintop of the faith, and I wanted to spread it with everybody, and like, you need to love Jesus. So this conversation at the gym, I was just pushing and being all self-righteous and preachy, and we ended up looking like, you know, in cartoons, whenever people are fighting, they have like cloud that's just like dust and limbs. We were like rolling out of the gym looking like that. And I really kind of hurt him that day. It was just not a good day. But we kind of simmered down, and then a little bit later we went to go see a movie. It was Spider-Man Homecoming. This is right before Infinity War was coming out. And after the movie was over, we were discussing like theories about what was going to be in Infinity War, and we were there with another group of people, and my friend had this really strong opinion that it was going to be one particular way, and everybody else was kind of like, I don't really know, not like going down, not like being demeaning, but we didn't really agree. And he got kind of mad, and that's totally fine, like I get it, he felt kind of attacked by the group. But my little brother, as we were leaving, kind of said something snarky, and that really set him off. And he ended up getting really mad and kind of shoving my brother, and he wound up running into the ticket counter booth at the movie theater, and my protective instincts just went off. I was like, no, you do not touch my baby brother. Like, we will go to the death because you pushed my baby brother. And that finally was the catalyst that set him off. We had another, screaming match as we're leaving the movie theater, and it wound up as we were in our buddy's car, he was driving us back to his place. He was basically like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You've changed like fundamentally, and I don't even really know who you are. And in that moment, I was like, okay, fine. If you're gonna pull the plug, I can't stop you. But looking back, I was like, man, I really was the fool. Like, I hurt both of us. And because I was being preachy and self-righteous. And getting out of that friendship, we still talk, but it's never gonna be the same. And so I kind of mourn what we had, and it's taught me how to be a better friend. And so friendships of convenience, or friendships of pleasure, you wind up integrating your life way more. And at least you can. And then it can hurt a little bit more to get out of. But if a friendship where you spend a lot of time with this person, all of a sudden kind of goes south and you can't have a solid communication about it and kind of deal with it, it's probably going to be best to kind of step away and try and come back later and help trying to fix it. But if it can't, you can't let a bad friendship that tear you apart, tear you to pieces. You need to try and learn and grow from your mistakes. But it's better for you long term to kind of back away and let the friendship kind of naturally come back together?
I think not forcing friendships is like a really important point that we want to make tonight, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk about with this last type of friendship, virtue friendships. Aristotle says it's like his highest form of friendship. What we're talking about, like here, you kind of heard Caius and Sarah talk about last week. It's like a holy, like virtuous friendship. And Aristotle says like they're pretty rare. You're not going to have like all of these. You're going to have maybe one or two at a time. So I had a friend in my life. She was like my best friend, and we truly wanted like the best for each other. We really wanted to like push each other to be better, holier people. We were engaged in our faith together. We were just like going for it. It was great. It was so much fun. But we didn't set boundaries very well. Like when we started talking, we would just talk. Like we'd get on the phone and we'd talk for 2 or 3 hours at a time. But what would happen when we did that is like 2 hours into our phone conversation, we'd start to get really heated because we'd fight about something like really nerdy or silly. We have just kind of crazy stuff. But then that energy would stay with us for the next hour we were on the phone. We'd end up like getting off the phone really mad at each other for no reason, other than we kept talking long beyond when we should have kind of stopped. And this all came to a head at one point when she didn't feel secure in our friendship. She felt like she was getting more out of it than she was putting in, and she just decided she really wanted to help me. And the way that she decided to go about this was by like pushing my boundaries to find out where my boundaries were so that she could help me become more comfortable with my boundaries. But she did that by just like shattering all of my walls and like kind of left me in a sobbing heap. And it was really bad. And I was like sitting there like on the floor kind of crying after I like sent her. I was like, go away, like leave me alone, you've just broken me. And I'm like, what do I do now? This was my best friend, the whole world, and I just completely trusted her with myself. And like, I decided in that moment, like, I know her really well. I don't really want to lose this friendship entirely, but maybe I need to step it back. Maybe we need to try to be like, have just like a pleasure friendship, because maybe we were trying to go for too much. And we set like some hard boundaries with the time that we were going to spend together, with like the emotional input we were going to put into it. And your friends don't have to know you're doing this. Like she still doesn't know sometimes that I'm like, oh, like, I have to get off the phone now. I'm not like overtly going to say to her, I have to get off the phone because if we stay on the phone, we're going to start screaming at each other within 5 minutes. Like, you just kind of can learn within your friendships. You don't have to be like, I'm getting off the phone now because we're out of time and I don't want to yell at you.
Like the prepaid card ran out.
Yeah. You know, if I'm really honest, but like do have these conversations with your friends, and sometimes that does mean like letting go of a really close friendship and still having a friendship with someone that just wasn't as close. And like going back to that quote about loving people, a lot of times we want to like love and be loved, and it's really hard to accept like less when we want more, but we're not called to be 100% on 100% of the time. So not all of our friendships are going to be like these 100% committed super friendships, and that's kind of the point of these virtue friendships. Is like when you have them, treasure them, but recognize you can't force something to be something that it's not, and like, there's no easy way to let go of that. We were talking about that. Prayer is a big part. Like no one understands losing friendships quite like Jesus. Like, he got arrested and all of his friends ran away. Some of them denied him. Like, he understands the pain and the heartbreak of losing friends. Like, take that to him. Don't be afraid to take that to him in your prayer.
Absolutely not. And I found, specifically with virtue friendships, the only way they really kind of start to break down is when you push too hard, when somebody breaks down a wall or is trying to drag somebody along in kind of a faith life that they weren't ready for. Kind of what happened with my friend. So now that we've finished friendship, we're going to talk about the fun part tonight, romantic relationships. Thank you. So for my part of the story, I want to give a call back to my theme about you cannot get perfect love from anyone except God, and when you do, you end up hurting yourself and others. So I went on a retreat through the Newman Center here, and I met this friend of mine, good friend now, but I met her and we were kind of instantly hit it off. We had some common interests and we were just really got to know each other pretty well. And after we started hanging out, having a good time with each other, And then I never really I was interested in a relationship, but I made 3 crucial mistakes. I never actually talked to her about a relationship. So yeah, and we never had the DTR talk, the define the relationship talk, because there was kind of something going on, but we were never really sure, and it was just unclear and a hot mess. And the same, call back to the theme again, I was trying to get perfect love from her. I was insecure in my own identity and my worth as a human. So because of that, I was trying to get that from another human being, and it just doesn't work. So cue 2 months of me freaking out about my self-worth and this relationship that wasn't really happening, but by the time I did ask about a relationship, she just wasn't interested. We'd been friends too long, and she just wasn't really interested in the time. So more anguish. I was freaking out oh, I'm not worthy, all this stuff, and I was just a hot mess. And the only way I got through that was counsel of good friends like Tyler and my buddy Noah. But then my junior year, we started talking a little bit again, and by this time I kind of learned my lesson, and I was like, okay, I'm interested in a relationship. Are you also interested? And she's like, yeah, sure, let's give it a shot. I didn't say it like that. I'm not some maniac. But it came off clear and effective, I hope. So we get back together, and the relationship was still very unhealthy on my side because I was still looking to her to validate my worth. Constant cycle. I need to learn that. And so after a while, we were together 2 or 3 months, and we didn't really do anything. The relationship never really went anywhere. And so then, by the time we had a big fight about something, it was just this kind of knockdown drag out over a couple days, and then we broke it off. And I was all of a sudden back in the very bottom of my self-worth and just freaking out about everything. And I actually was able to learn something and get through that breakup of a romantic relationship by having good counsel from friends and taking it to Christ in prayer, because that's the only way I was able to start hearing you are my beloved son with whom I'm well pleased, taking that into myself and finally accepting my identity as a son of God and not someone who dates girls. So that was a big part of me growing, and the only way I was able to get there was with friends and prayer.
Yeah, and I had a relationship in high school that we had kind of the opposite problem of Nathan's. The 2 of our friends set us up. I was his first girlfriend, he was my first boyfriend. Neither of us knew what that meant. And so, we had a defined relationship. We were just kind of rolling with it. And we didn't necessarily set boundaries because we didn't need to know we needed to set boundaries. And that can be a big problem in romantic relationships, is 2 people come in with their expectations of what a relationship looks like, and then it kind of just destroys the relationship. And we ended up breaking up, and it lasted 3 months. There was not much to our relationship. But what I learned from that breakup is you have to learn how to tell people when you're uncomfortable. And sometimes it looks really silly, it's you sitting in front of your mirror. I did this. It happens, it helps. You sit in front of your mirror and say, boyfriend, I am not comfortable if you grope me at a party in front of our friends. Just say that and practice saying it, because it sounds really silly, but it works, because then when you're in an uncomfortable situation, you can be boyfriend, I am not comfortable with this level of PDA, especially in front of other people. So you do kind of have to prepare yourself to set boundaries and practice it, even if it's with yourself. And then there's one other kind of relationship that I think people are afraid of getting into.
It's a weird coincidence about this story, how we kind of had very similar stories line up, so I'm gonna let you start.
Yeah. So a lot of people are really afraid of dating their friends, because they're oh my gosh, if I date my best friend, what am I gonna do? I've done this twice in my life. Both times I was the instigator of the breakup. It happens. So I was at this point in my life, I was really seriously discerning religious life. And I like put dating on the back burner. I'm like, I'm gonna focus on my like prayer, my relationship with Jesus. And it like got to a point where all my friends, a lot of my friends were in relationships. Every time I got on Facebook, it was like engagement season. Someone new was engaged. Or like, oh, like I went to a wedding this weekend and I was like, I kind of want that. And there's this guy in my life and he's like this perfect guy and he like checks all my boxes and I really want to go out with him. So I went to my friends and I was like, oh my gosh, guys, there's this guy and I really want to go out with him. What should I do? And they're like, you should go out with him, obviously. And I was like, but I got like this discernment thing. I think I might be called a religious life. And they were like, you should go out with him. So I did. I think you were in kind of a similar situation at one point.
Yeah, a while back, there was a girl who I had met her, we kind of became good friends, and, you know, we hit it off pretty quick, and we were like, there's kind of some mutual interest going on, but at the time she wasn't super, like she wasn't into, like she wasn't, oh my gosh, words. She wasn't really wanting a relationship right now, she just wanted to kind of grow her friendship and just figure out her life a little bit. So eventually she came back around and she was like, hey, I am interested in dating right now, would you like to give it a shot? And I was like, yes, very much. So we went on a couple dates, you know, 2 hours in a coffee shop, dinner date, all the good stuff. And this was, you know, kind of going into a break of like school time and we were going to be together nearly as much. But it was still going well and I was really optimistic.
And so like, it's like that, like you start dating your best friend, you're like, I am dating my best friend, this is so much fun, like we get along so well, everyone's having a good time. For me, I had a great ending to my story. The first time I dated my best friend, it's awful. The second time, I was like, I know everything I did wrong, this didn't be great. And then I went on Seek, and I was like, and at our Seek, I was like, I should go to confession. So I went to confession. I'm like, Father, these are my sins. And Father was like, what are you saying? And I was like, I told you my sins. He's like, what's on your heart? And I was like, well, I got this relationship with this guy, and like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing in my prayer life right now. And he was like, daughter, I can sense that you have this call to religious life. And I was like, Father, why? Why? This relationship was doing so great. Like I was having a lot of concerns kind of, because obviously I was called to religious life, but I really wanted this relationship. So, I can't. It's your turn.
Okay, so turns out I had actually, we were going into Seek, whenever, this was the break we were going into, and the big night of adoration, I was sitting there like really good time in prayer, like talking to Jesus, great time. After it's over, after all the praise and worship music fades out and everything's calming down, everybody's trying to go back to their hotel room or go out to a bar or whatever, Mary comes up to me and is like, hey, I was just in confession with a priest, and he said, I can sense your call to the religious life. And that is how a priest broke up me and Mary Mertes.
To Nathan's credit, I go up to him and I'm like, Father just said I have a call to religious life, and he looks at me, and honest to God, the words out of his mouth were, well, I guess that means no third date then.
It's true. No, whenever we were going into this, we both kind of, like, I knew that Mary was still kind of discerning the religious life, but he was like interested in dating as kind of seeking out the discernment because of the advice of her spiritual director, thank you, Father Abisham. And I had also mentioned that, like, I'm still kind of working on figuring out, like, discerning the priesthood, like, where is that taking me, like, where's my heart at? And so we were both like, at any moment, one of us could go flying off somewhere. It's like, I have a call, bye! And so I was like aware of this being a possibility, but Mary being so direct and honest with me about it and saying like, this is just not a thing that's going to work right now, was super good for growing our relationship, becoming better friends actually, but ending the dating relationship because that's not where either of us really needed to be.
Yeah, and I think like, when we think of breakups, we think like, oh, like this guy just broke my heart, like I never can speak to him again. But not all breakups are like that. That's kind of why we wanted to share our story. We were best friends. We dated for a little while. It didn't work. We're up here. Like we're still best friends. And so like that was just communication was the key to that. Like we broke up, but we didn't lose that friendship.
Whenever it comes to dating relationships, or frankly any kind of relationship, like communication, both with the other person and with God in prayer, is super important. Otherwise, you will get those knockdown, drag-out, heartbreaking breakups. And they still might happen, I don't know. But like being honest and open with yourself and the other person and God will make it so much easier.
So the last thing we're going to talk about is community. And when we talk about like friendship in the aspect of community, what we want to talk about tonight is when you're in a community that isn't lifting you to God, what do you do? How do you function in that?
So community, as I'm guessing many of you are aware, the community is absolutely important, crucial to the spiritual life, crucial to the Christian life. And so when it goes wrong, it goes so wrong. It'll mess you up, you won't even know you're doing things wrong sometimes. Like there's the quote about you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. That is absolutely true of community just as much as of friends. So for my freshman year in college, I had some friends who were kind of holdover friends from high school. I was close to them, I played football with some of them. But as soon as they got here, they were like, it's college, let's drink. A lot. So I would go to their dorm room and we would just sit in the dorm room and get drunk and listen to, music that was like, we would sit around and get drunk. Not a good time. Well, it was a great time, but like bad. Don't drink. Don't get drunk, kids. So this time was not good for me spiritually or even health-wise just because of all the alcohol consumption. And it also led me away from the faith community. I was spending time with these people when I could have been coming to E3 and getting to know all you wonderful people and finding my faith life sooner. And it was just, I was being led away by my sin from these people, these awesome people who I could have gotten to know and love even sooner. But looking back, I can see how God was working with my sin in that time. I have a couple great friends who are now in mechanical engineering with me. We're graduating in May. And they're going to be guys that I know and I can go to. One of the guys is even like Eastern Orthodox and we talk about our faith lives all the time. But I know that it was God using my hot mess to try and get some good out of it. And that's, whenever a community can go wrong, God can use it to do some good. But if you realize that you're in a group of people who is doing something, like who is leading you astray, you probably need to step back at least, if not completely disconnect from that group.
Yeah, so Nathan was able to kind of step back and still interact with the people from that community in other ways. I had a kind of different experience my freshman year. I joined some clubs on campus and just found this, what I thought was a really great group of people. We had a lot of fun together, we talked about deep stuff. But I realized within a couple of months of hanging out with them, it was actually a pretty bad crowd. They were pretty unethical people. There was a lot of drinking, there was some drug things going on there, and I was just becoming an awful, hateful, angry, bitter kind of person. And when I woke up and realized that, I was like, okay, I can be a better person. But I still want to hang out with these people. These people are my friends. They're the only people I know at college. If I don't hang out with them, who else am I going to hang out with? And so I tried, but every time I'd go to a club meeting or a party, I was getting dragged back down into that pit. I was becoming that angry, bitter, vengeful person again. And it eventually got to the point where I realized I can't find a balance here. Some people can. In some communities, you can find that balance. Some communities, you're not going to be able to. And so I had to just completely step back from that and let go. I'm I can't go to these meetings anymore. I can't hang out with these people. And that was really hard because I was a freshman, I didn't know very many people, and I had to kind of find a new community, and it was really scary. And I really wish that I had a new community at the time. I definitely think all of you are here now. So if you have this community, if you have people in your life that you need to step away from, we're here to support you in that. It kind of fits with just in general the theme of the night is in your relationships, recognize what you can handle, where you need to step back and step away, and if that means completely letting go of people, you can't help everyone. And not everyone is going to be a great fit for you. And letting go is hard, but you can lean on your friends and you can lean on your prayer life.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole that's the whole theme we're trying to get across is leaning on God, leaning on the strong friends that you know care about you, and using that prayer and that friendship and being able to hash things out to help you make good choices with your friendships and where you're going. with your relationships and communities you choose to invest in. And that is kind of just, that's where we're going. Like, that's, whenever you find yourself in somewhere bad, try and figure out what to do, try and make the best decision, and just move on. That's kind of all you can ask for, especially when something goes really south. Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys. So, last week when Caius and Sarah talked, Caius got Sarah a beautiful little bouquet of flowers. So I thought I'd get Nathan a little gift. Bodie, where are you? So I kind of thought I'd just go with the theme of the night. I reached out to some of my friends and got you some flowers. They're a little dead because Allison's had them for a couple weeks. But I hope you like them.
They're still beautiful.
Thank you guys.